Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Andy. I'm from Udacity, based here in sunny Berlin. And I'm very pleased to welcome you today to our live careers webinar with folks from Zalando. So a big welcome to Maricela, who is an employer branding specialist, to Paolo, who is a software engineer, and to Sanika from Zalando. And we're very lucky to have them joining us today to answer some of your questions about career opportunities at Zalando, what it's like to work at the company, what they're excited about in terms of technologies, and all kinds of other questions that you have kindly pre-submitted to us. And also we'll be doing a live Q&A at the end. So thank you all for joining us. I know that you're joining from many cities across Europe, so that's great to see. And so without further ado, I'd like to hand over to the guys at Zalando to do introductions. Welcome, guys, and thanks for joining.
Okay. There's some microphone. Yeah.
Hey, Paolo, we can hear you.
Yes. Cool. So I'm Paulo. I'm software engineer at Zalando for quite some time, almost a little over 2 years now. I'm basically a backend developer, and I have lots of fun writing lots of Scala code usually. Yeah, that's it. I'm originally from Brazil, but I'm now living in Berlin, where the headquarters of Zalando is located right now.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so my name is Maricela. I am working for Zalando in our employer branding department. That is part of our talent acquisition team. And I work closely with recruiting to hire the right talent for Zalando.
Yeah. And I'm Sanika. I'm a front-end developer here at Zalando. I'm with the company for 2 years. And yeah, mostly working with JavaScript and React and building stuff in our shop.
Excellent, cool. Thank you for the introductions. It'd be great if you could just tell us a bit about Zalando as a whole. Maybe you could give us an introduction as to what the company does, and yeah, a bit of an overview for those watching who might not be so familiar with Zalando as a company.
So Zalando is one of the biggest e-commerce platforms for fashion that we have in Europe. So it's having a big market share in 17 countries in Europe. We have a revenue of 4.5 billion per year. And we have at the moment 24 million active customers, which results in 200 million visits per month. And 75% of those are made with mobile devices. So already there is quite a big indicator that we should be very mobile focused here. The company is operating with 15,000 employees, of which are nearly over 2,000 employees in technology. They are distributed here across Berlin in over several offices, as Berlin is the headquarters, as Paolo already mentioned. But we also have tech offices in Europe, in Dublin, Helsinki, and also now in Lisbon. And not only do we implement or build the e-commerce shop that you can see, or our outlet sites that are like Lounge or Zalando Privé, as they are called in different other countries, but we also have 7 fulfillment centers, like warehouses, where we do everything from packing the orders and shipping them on our own. And we also build the software in-house. So we don't buy any external solutions, but we are also just programming and building it on our own.
Amazing, cool. Thank you for the introduction. So joining us today live, we have a mixture of students and graduates from Udacity's front-end web developer nano-degree program, the full-stack web developer nano-degree program, the React program, and we received many questions ahead of today from those attending. So I'd like to jump straight in to get those questions answered. So as a starting point, I'd love to hear what a typical day might look like for a developer at Zalando.
Do you want to start?
So yeah, talking from a team that's mostly backend. So my current team have no front end. We starts the day. We always not the first thing, but one of the first things in the day that we do is our daily stand-up. So as everybody comes to the office, people start checking communication, email, whatever, and then starting working with in whatever they were working before. But then when we have everyone in the office, we have our daily stand-up where we talk about how things are going and basically decide what we are going to do that day. Yeah. And then we spend the whole day actually developing things, broken up by some meetings depending on the necessity. So we have planning meetings depending on the day. We have grooming, it's related to planning, and we have some retrospective meetings. It's quite cool because it gives a chance for everybody to talk about what's working, what's not working in our daily routines. But yeah, most of our day is actually doing coding, which what most of us like. But yeah, some meetings here and there, but always the cadence is always given by the daily stand-up. I don't know if that applies to everything, but yeah, that's my view of it, the way we do it.
Thank you. And Sinikka, did you have anything to add to that?
Actually, my day is mostly similar to what Paolo already mentioned. Although we have back-end and front-end developers on our team, so there's a little bit more exchange and also an aligning in terms of features that need to be implemented, that we really see that we both parts of the team are then going to the same direction. But otherwise, the meetings are the same, and yeah, looks the same.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And so you both mentioned, Paolo, that on your team you're mostly consisting of back-end developers, and Sinikka, on your team there's a mixture of both back-end and front-end. But maybe you could add a bit more color as to how development teams at Zalando more broadly are both structured and organized. Are there cross-functional teams, including product managers? And how are those teams structured, and how are they organized on a weekly basis?
So the teams are in Zalando differently shaped depending on what the goal of the team is to achieve. But I can speak from my team. We have front-end and back-end developers, as mentioned. We have a product specialist. We have an engineering lead who is giving guidance in terms of technical decisions and questions, and can help us out there. And then sometimes the teams have also a producer who's helping out to set up the whole processing of having the stand-ups and having organized planning, having the tickets in a shape that you can work on, and just all the organizational stuff to keep the machine running and be successful.
Excellent.
Yeah, for me, it's basically the same thing again. We have a product specialist in our team that's shared with another team. Most of us are developers, and then there's the we don't call producer, but we have a similar role to that, and that helps keeping the process in place. So obviously some lead that helps with technical decisions, but also one thing that I like to note here is quite important, at least for me it's important, is that this lead is not he should not be taking the technical decisions, but rather guiding the team. So we as a team have a lot of freedom to choose which kind of technology we'll use to solve the problem that we have to choose, to solve. So yeah, this freedom is really cool that we have in our daily basis, in our daily work.
Cool, that's really cool. So whilst we're on the notes about choosing technologies, could you give us some more detail about what the tech stack at Zalando looks like?
Yeah, our tech stack is very diverse, so it goes together with I mentioned about the teams being able to take their own decisions. So we don't have a top-down approach of everybody has to use the same thing or not. So we have lots of different languages, for example, lots of different technologies. In the department that I work at, we have Scala, we have Haskell, we have Go. Lots of front-end things that I don't really know too much about, but we have all kinds of technologies. We use Nakaji, which is sort of front-end for Kafka, for messaging, but we use all kinds of different technologies across the company. There are other teams using, I just learned today that one team is using Rust So I didn't know that, but then we have one team using Rust in production. So yeah, all sorts of things.
Yeah, and from the front-end side, it's, as I mentioned before, mostly React. So all the pages that you can see when you go to our shop page, www.zalando.de or CO UK or whatever, they are all built with React. And we have a big framework that was built in-house to actually make this whole work together, that you can split the parts of a website up and have different teams working on it. Then for the backend side of the front end, we use Node.js, but there are also tools built in Angular 2 right now, I think, and also experimental stuff like Elm and ClojureScript. So they are just for internal tools, but people are free to choose. And if they say, I heard of this framework and I would really like to try this out, they are free to do it if the use case is allowing that freedom.
Interesting. That's really helpful. I already have seen that a question was coming in about experimenting with new technology. So that's great to hear. Excellent. And then, so for both of you personally, looking forward, what are the technologies and frameworks that you're most excited about?
Me personally, actually, I'm very excited about service workers and progressive web apps, because I see there are a lot of potential for just our business as an e-commerce, keeping customers able to do something while they are in the tube, on the ground, somewhere where reception is really bad, but they can still continue shopping. And then we just work on the realizing the events afterwards when they have reception again, is something that I'm really looking forward to try out and see how this would play well with our applications and our mobile side. Because as mentioned, 75% of our customers are shopping mobile, so there's a lot of potential there.
Cool. For me, from a more purely technical curiosity perspective, I really like to see how the functional programming style of development is evolving, the Scala ecosystem mainly. And so, yeah, I really like how it's evolving, and I like that I can try some of those things already in my projects. It's adding a lot of productivity and lots of different kind of fun in what we do in terms of coding. In a slightly different perspective, I also like what we are doing with Kubernetes, which is a whole new way of deploying things. Not at this point, not so new, but it's still not out there for everybody. But it's awesome how easy it is to deploy things with Kubernetes, and we are spreading that throughout the whole company. So lots of teams are already using Kubernetes for deploying their services, and we are moving towards having everybody there. And it's so really makes our life so much easier that I really love that we are moving that direction.
Excellent. Thanks both for those details. So shifting gears slightly to the jobs available at Zalando. What kind of roles are you hiring for, and what are the key attributes that you would be looking for people to join your teams?
So in terms of the jobs that we have available, we're always looking for developers, both front end and back end, but also full stack. Also, data science is a field that's growing a lot by Zalando. The only thing is that we tend to have roles where we look for experienced hires, and that's a bit difficult because I know a lot of people are now starting on their journey in engineering. But I would say we have definitely positions. So if you are interested, you can have a look at our website and see if anything fits for you.
Excellent. And are there any kind of broad trends or attributes that you would see from people that fit at Zalando in terms of the culture?
I would say it's, our values are pretty much curiosity. So being very open to exploring, not just taking a solution that's offered to you, being brave and taking risks. So Paolo was mentioning, we're just trying things out. We're not really sure if this is going to work, but we're going to try new things and try to come up with solutions. Being geeky is also important for us. So really like looking at the numbers and looking at putting in the hard work to really see what is working and getting results out of it. Those are sort of the characteristics that we're looking for. But in per team, I would say we're looking for an individual fit when you apply for a job with us. So it's not just that you need to be this certain type of person. We have 15,000 people in our company, and we have that many different personalities. So, when you are looking to join us, it's really, we're looking to see, do you fit with the team, and what are your unique skills and personality traits that add value to a team.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to add something to that, is that whoever is joining us is always a good fit if this person is open to feedback and it's really interested in learning. And we value this a lot because, like I mentioned, we have all kinds of different technologies, all kinds of different products being developed, and we have to have the frame of mind of always being learning. And sometimes we do something wrong, and some people will tell us that, or should at least, and then we should be open to hear that and take something good out of it. So learn and grow. So being able to grow, I think being willing to grow and open to get this kind of feedback is really important for us.
Cool, good advice. And following that theme, if you were to give one or two key pieces of information or advice for developers who are just starting out in their career, what would you say to them?
Sorry, what I would like to say is don't be afraid to fail. So also here, what I learned actually working at Zalando, it's not bad to fail, but just learn from your mistakes that you do. So also when you go into an interview, don't be afraid to say what you think might be the wrong answer, but just go for it and say it. And if the interviewer sees that you are willing to think about it again and maybe come up with a solution that would solve that problem or make it better, then that's also a good point. So no, not being afraid of failing is probably a big main thing that I would say.
And yeah, and adding to that, also don't be afraid to tell up front that you don't know something. So if you don't know it, just admit you don't know it, and that's okay. It's worse to try to go around in circles trying to say something you don't know. Okay, move on, and next question, and you have an opportunity to say something else. On a more practical term, I would suggest using GitHub a lot. Go to GitHub, look at open source projects, contribute to open source projects. Lots of open source can get lots of help on documentation, for example. So if you don't know how to code yet, or you're not confident in coding, just go and contribute documentation, and you start your resume, so to speak, there. So if you don't have a good resume yet, GitHub will be your resume.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. That's something that we also advocate for a lot within our non-degree programs, within the careers projects as students reach graduation. So glad to hear that resonates well with you internally as well. And so, speaking of the interview process, what does a typical hiring process or interview process look like at Zalando? And following that, what are some of the typical questions that somebody might expect to be asked if they were to get an interview there?
So the interview process varies from role to role, and how in-depth we go varies from the level of experience that we're looking for. But generally, it starts with a Codility challenge. At the same time or afterwards, we would have an HR interview, meaning you would speak to a recruiter who's a technical recruiter, and this person would really just be trying to find out about your background, how much experience you have, which languages you're using, and they would want to really get the information. What level are you? Because they might have several roles that are open. So they want to make sure that you have applied for the right level, let's say. It might be that you have applied for a role that's too low for your skill level, and they would suggest you for something higher. So that's the purpose of that interview, more like a background check and checking that you're best suited for the position you actually applied for. And if you're successful after this stage, you'd be invited to an interview with the hiring manager. That could be something on Hangouts, where you would speak to the actual team lead or someone from their team, and you would go a bit more in depth. All our interviews are technical interviews, so you would be expected to talk about what you would be doing on the job. And then a final round would involve at least speaking to 3 different teams or people, where they would ask you about your coding skills, and they would try to assess your level as well and team fit. So it is actually a process that we go through to make sure that we really fit you in the right team and in the right role.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And so, and then shifting gears beyond the interview process, if somebody was hired at Zalando, what does the training and development look like for developers that are in the teams? How do you keep those developers at the forefront of their game?
So here at Zalando, we have something that we are calling internally the Tech Academy, where there are a lot of trainings that people can book. They are not only technical, but also soft skill wise, or you're also not bound to do trainings that are front-end related. If you're a front-end developer, for example, I did a course in Scala because I was interested in getting an introduction in Scala. So you can have a snoop around the different languages that we offer here. Mostly the trainings are helped by people from Zalando, actually. So the developers are doing them themselves. And this is what motivates you as well. So if you think, okay, something is missing now, and I feel like I want to expand my knowledge and do something completely different, or go from front end to back end, for example, then it's a good starting point to just start with our courses. But other than that, our community amongst the developers is also really active. So we have a tech exchange where people are sharing new cool technologies, and discussions are spun up from there. And so just talk to your fellow developer on the other team, and you already have maybe some ideas that inspire you to try something new.
Yeah, I can add just one quick example on that we just, well, despite the fact that we usually are hiring more experienced people, we just hired two junior level people in my team, and we need to get them up to date and with our technology. And just happens that we have an offer in the Tech Academy for an ACA, basic ACA course, and we'll just send them there because it will help us a lot as a whole team. So it helps that we in the team don't have to teach everything, but it also helps them to learn a lot in a more straightforward way. And there's always new things coming up. So like on the soft skill based soft skill part of things, there is a new course on Tech Academy about to come out about training the trainers. So a training for people that want to give trainings. So there's different level of kind of offers internally as well. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. That's super interesting. So I have one last question from me that was pre-submitted, and then we'll jump into the questions that are coming in via the live chat. So the last question is, what does the future hold for Zalando?
So technology-wise, we are aiming to have a platform architecture. So there's a lot of rebuilding going on at the moment. So I can't even list everything that is happening right now, but the main aim is to have a platform and to go into the marketplace direction. So everyone is working really hard in the tech department on this. But yeah, as I said, too much to list basically and I don't even know everything that is going on at the moment, I think. So that is from the technical point of view.
Yeah. I can add from a business perspective, we're growing very quickly. We have very ambitious goals. Like Seneca said at the beginning in the company introduction, we're 15,000 people, but by the end of this year, we'll be even more. We've launched 2 new countries this year, Czech Republic and Ireland. So I see very ambitious goals for growth. And obviously that means a tech background and a tech architecture to support our shop growing, and also a lot of new positions being opened, and our subsidiary businesses are also growing quite rapidly. So we have daughter companies like Zalando Media Solutions or Zalon or Tradebyte that are also really pushing their part of the business and growing rapidly as well. So it's just growth is kind of like my buzzword for that answer.
Paolo, did you have anything to add there?
Yes. No, it's generally what Seneca said. the platform thing is something that's happening. We are coming from a position where we had some years ago a monolith, and we are breaking everything into microservices for a few years now. We already have lots of microservices there, and we are still going through this work, for example. So the future is also more and more and more microservices as we move forward. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to jump into the questions coming in via the chat. One question that I've seen coming in from a few people is whether you have opportunities available for people looking for internships.
Yes, we do. I'm so happy about that question. We do have 2 internships open right now in front-end engineering. That is with one of our daughter companies that I just mentioned, Zalando Media Solutions. And they're also based in Berlin. And the key technical skills that we're looking for are JavaScript, C++, and HTML. And what's also important is that this person has good communication skills. So at the end of this webinar, I believe we'll be sending out an email where I would also include the link for the role, but you can also go ahead independently and just look at our website and search for that internship position in front-end engineering. It's really a good opportunity, I think, because we don't have that many junior positions very often. And there is the possibility to then be taken on afterwards, after completing the internship. So it's really like a golden ticket in the door sort of position. And the duration would be 6 months long. So I'd be really happy to get some of your applications.
Cool. That's a pretty strong call to action. Excellent. And then, so another question that I see coming in here is whether you have any developers that work remotely. And then maybe something that I'd like to build on top of that is whether you could talk a bit about like what the working day might look like, and whether you offer any flexible working opportunities, or what the culture is more broadly on those sorts of topics.
So I can answer the remote working. We don't offer remote working per se. We have different office locations. So if you are based in Lisbon or Helsinki or Dublin, that's really great. We also have offices in Dortmund and Hamburg. That's where we can say you can work from. But we are really working together with teams very closely. So being fully based remotely is not possible, but a flexible working system is available. So we do have flexible working hours. It's based on trust. And sometimes, you know, you go on a business trip or you go on a conference. So this is not an issue for us.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like working from home is no problem if you have an appointment or something like that. And traveling back and forth from work would take more time than actually the appointment. It's totally fine. If you just let your team know and your lead knows about it, then that's not a problem.
Yeah, great, thank you. So this question is directed at Paolo. You mentioned earlier in your introduction that your team was using Go. And the question is, why you selected to use Go over Python?
Yeah, I would say my department, not my team, so I'm not directly using Go. I'm actually using lots of Scala. So I cannot really answer this question. Okay, what I can comment is that we don't have too much Python in the company. We have some teams doing some data science with Python. And my department, in my team, actually, we use some Python for some scripts. So we want to get something done pretty fast to automate some repetitive tasks. We end up using some Python for that. Yeah, but I can't go too much into detail why they chose Go. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay, no problem. Thank you. And so one of the questions here was about whether you have a particular method for product development, whether you use Scrum or Agile or something else.
Yeah, that depends again on the team. As we mentioned before, teams can choose themselves how they want to be organized. There's nothing that is preached from top to bottom. So it really depends on the team. So we try to adjust the Scrum methodology to our needs. So if a sprint is not working out as we planned, that we have the tickets all in the beginning of a 2-week sprint defined, then we switch to Kanban, because that is the current working mode that we are actually in. So, but it really depends on what kind of work is coming up and what kind of features and use cases are there. So we just pick whichever things suit us best. For that, we also then again have producers or other people that support us with finding the best fit for us.
Yeah, adding a little bit to that, yeah, it's exactly what you said, what Sinika said. All the teams have complete freedom to choose, which means we have all kinds of different methodologies, being agile methodologies. That's the only thing. It has to be some kind of agile methodology, but it can be any kind of that you want to use that fits your team. And I can say that in my current team, we are going through a big change right now. So we are going from trying to use Scrum to actually implementing Kanban, which we just started with that, but it's already showing some results. So we're just experimenting and it's working fine, and we are improving as we move. But we just decide by ourselves, and we'll do that, and that's it. We have this guy that helps with the producer role, but he's not there all the time. And then part of the team takes responsibility for that, which means that there's an opportunity for everybody to take an impact of the whole team, of the whole team's work. Yes.
Excellent. Thanks for that. So maybe this is a question for Maricela. What additional benefits are offered at Zalando, or put it another way, what makes Zalando an attractive place to work, aside from the exciting technologies and obviously the additional training that you were speaking about earlier?
Okay, great question. We have a really young, dynamic team that are just so enthusiastic about coming to work every day. I think that's one of the big selling points. You won't find lazy people at Zalando. I think that could be a good criteria if you want to decide if it's right for you. People work really hard here, and that's very motivational. We have really exciting projects to work on. Apart from that, there's a package based on what your role is when you sign up. That's very attractive. We're based in the middle of Berlin. We have really great offices. It sounds like a cliche when I say free food and coffee, but it's really useful because I eat breakfast at work every day, and that's a really good way to save time, and it's a really big convenience.
And the coffee is important for developers.
Yeah.
So.
And it's really just a great atmosphere, I would say. I don't know, Sinika, Paula, would you like to add?
Definitely. So what I would like to add is that we have a very diverse company. So we have people from all over the world working here, and I don't know, I work with people from India, from Russia, Ukraine. There's like from all over the places, and and because we have a strong collaboration also with the other tech hubs, there's also then people from Finland involved, and Ireland, and Lisbon, Portugal. I mean, that's not a country, but like there's a great cultural exchange as well. So you learn a lot also in those regards from your co-workers.
That's super interesting. Thank you. And so you just touched there on diversity. One of the questions is how big is the typical team size?
So my team is fairly small considered to other teams that I've worked with here in Zalando. At the moment, we have 4 developers, an engineering lead, and a product specialist that are always there. So yeah, that's 6 people. But I've also worked in a team. There were 10 developers plus producer, product specialist, engineering lead, and there were even 2 product specialists. So we were a really big team. So it again depends on what you're working on. At the moment, my team is fairly new, and we just started to work on something that wasn't there in the company yet, an area that we are currently covering. So hence we are still small, but probably we will be growing as well.
Yeah, that's basically it for me as well. The difference is that I never worked in the big team like that. I worked in 2 or 3 different teams already. All of them were small teams. So ranging from 4 to 7, 8 maybe, but not more than that. Yeah. So usually small teams, which is good for agile processes anyway.
Great, thank you. So one question here coming from Alexander, which I guess is important to cover, is what is the primary spoken language in the offices in Berlin?
So we all speak English, and English is our official language at Zalando. If you speak another language like German, that's useful, but it is not an essential requirement for most roles. It's always written in the job description which languages are required, and if the job description is in English and you don't see any mention of German, then we're happy to receive your application as well.
Excellent, great, glad to cover that. And so there's one question here from Mark, which is whether you embrace a DevOps culture at Zalando. And if yes, how are you approaching this?
Yes, we do. Every niche team is responsible to deploying their own projects and everything. The minor perk we have there is that we have a team that's responsible for the infrastructure. So they give us, for example, I mentioned before, the Kubernetes. So this infrastructure team gives us the Kubernetes cluster, but then we are responsible to set up our applications and deploy it to the cluster. So we own it from the whole life cycle of the application. We develop it, we set up the deployment, we actually do deploy ourselves. We have to set up all the monitoring and keep an eye and be sure that applications are still running and healthy and everything. So yeah, we have a full DevOps culture. We embrace it, and it is very important for us.
Okay, that's super interesting. Thank you. And so one of the next questions we have is about whether there are future plans for further expansion into other countries. So we've had a question about whether there's plans to open the business in Russia or Belarus. And I think further up the feed, somebody was asking about expansion in Helsinki as well. I don't know if you can provide any further details there about growth of Zalando outside of Berlin.
Okay, so in terms of office locations or in terms of our shop, I think that's probably the question that I would ask again. As far as we're aware, we've expanded for 2018 to the countries we want to, and I've not heard any new plans in terms of new office locations or new countries we want to serve. The last office we've opened was Lisbon, and we've only opened that a few months ago. So actually, I think for the moment, that's it in terms of new locations, at least in terms of what we're aware. But right now we're focusing then on scaling up our Lisbon office.
Okay, interesting. Thanks for that. And so one of the questions here is about what types of projects would it be useful for developers to work on to make themselves more employable? So as you know, within our Nandegree programs, they're very much structured around being hands-on and actually working on projects. And Paolo, you touched earlier on open source projects. So maybe you could add some more color as to what advice you would give developers aspiring to pursue a career to build out their portfolio and make themselves more employable.
That's an interesting question. What I like to do when I go to GitHub is to contribute to projects I use. So when I use any kind of framework in Scala, for example, I use HTTP4S, I use Akka, I use Play Framework. And I tend to go to those projects and see if they need some help and contribute something. My first thing is always documentation, like I mentioned. But then if there's a bug that is affecting something that I'm doing, I try to fix. So there's that. What kinds of projects? I don't have a very good idea on top of my head right now. I just like to look for things that are interesting for me. And because one question that you might get in an interview is like, what's the most interesting thing you did? And then if you did something interesting and you can describe it well and it solved any kind of problem, that's interesting.
Okay, thanks. And Seneca, did you want to add anything there?
Well, I also can't think of any specific projects on the top from the top of my head, but like what Paulo said, like whatever interests you is the thing to do, because that motivates you also the best to learn something new. Other than that, I think a solid basis, for example, in JavaScript is always a good thing to have. Like if you know the basics, then learning something new is not that difficult anymore. So yeah, just focus on really the even if it sounds like basic, just having the knowing what is in ES6 going on at the moment, but this is basically also a big chunk of the work that you do every day.
Okay, that's useful to know. Thank you. So we have a question here about specific career paths. So is it possible to become an engineering lead at Zalando without needing to work as a developer beforehand? And if yes, what does the interview process look like for engineering leads?
So I think we just looked around the room and we don't actually know the answer to that question. It's a very good question, but we can't really definitively say yes or no if you need to have been a developer. I would assume you need to have some experience.
That's all that I know of. Yeah. The careers that I've heard of here from other people that are on a higher level, they all have been developers before. So yeah, not sure about this one.
Yeah, can't say yes or no definitively, but we would assume so.
Yeah, it probably, I don't understand. I don't know if the question is regarding being a developer here or somewhere else. But yeah, in general, I would say a leader should have a development background for us, because the leader is supposed to give some guidance, and I don't know how you could give any kind of guidance if you never did that yourself before.
Okay, thanks. And so looking forward to other exciting technologies. Are any of you able to speak a little bit about whether Zalando is working on any specific machine learning projects at the moment?
There is actually a lot of machine learning going on, and this was just kicked off this year. And I know that we have loads of data scientists also working on these topics, but I can't give you any more details because I'm not working on it myself, but there are initiatives going on.
Yeah. So what I would suggest is we have really the specialists for machine learning, and we will do a special webinar with them so that we can answer all of those specific questions, because that's a whole, let's say, other bucket at Zalando, and it's really exciting. They're doing a lot of cool things, but I wouldn't want to say anything wrong in this moment because I can't speak for them.
That makes sense. Thank you. Okay, so just catching up here on some of the remaining questions. So there's a question here from Denise, which is, are internships only for matriculated students?
I have to check the job description.
But I think yes.
I think that we would need you to be registered at the university to be able to apply. I know that for certain types of internships, you might have already graduated and we could consider you. But generally, we are giving it to students who are currently at university or currently in a program. There are two different types of internships. Now that you've mentioned that, they are mandatory and voluntary internships. And this is also always listed in the job description. So that's something to pay attention to. If that is a requirement from your program or not, then you should apply for the right kind, let's say.
Okay, excellent. That's great. And just for everyone watching, what we will do is we will send out a follow-up email with all of the relevant links to resources. So there will be a specific job description sent out after this webinar for you to take a look at as well. So keep an eye out for that, probably coming to your inbox tomorrow. And so there's one question here from Alexander about the office environment. And the question is, are you allowed to listen to your own music during work hours?
Yeah.
If you use headphones, I guess, because otherwise you have lots of people, right? So you should be respectful anyway. But we all listen to music.
Yes,
definitely.
Good. Coffee and music required for productivity.
Definitely.
Excellent. Okay, great. I don't see any further questions coming in right now. So as we near the end of this webinar, I was just wondering if there's anything else that any of you would like to touch on, or add additional detail to that we've discussed today before we wrap up.
I would just like to say thanks, first of all, to all of the people who've listened in and made it up until this point in the webinar. Thank you for paying attention and asking so many questions. And in that email that you sent out tomorrow, Andy, it would be great that we would also like to invite the community to join a talent community that I would start, because I know some people are not ready right now to apply for an internship or don't have enough experience to join us yet, but we'd like to still keep in touch with you. So I would send out a link for our talent community, and we'd be happy if they sign up.
Amazing, that sounds great. Yeah, we'll absolutely include that. So yeah, thank you very much to the three of you for joining us this evening. It's been really insightful for me, and I know it has been to everyone listening as well. And thanks to all of you who have joined us on the webinar. Much appreciated that you've given up part of your evening to join us today. And so yeah, that leaves me just to say thanks once again, and keep an eye out in your inboxes tomorrow for the follow-up email. So thanks to all of you for joining, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.